Good afternoon. No, people don't know it's afternoon, to be fair. It's Matt Kendall here. Haven't done a little recording in a while. I've got Jonathan McCormack, who is based in New York City. Again, you always have to say New York like that if you're not from your fact. You might say if you are in New York. So Jonathan did the training in, I think was it April? The training
Yeah,
was it April?
April.
Yeah. So he's just completed his case studies now. So today he's going to become an IEMT practitioner. So, Jonathan, how are you? It looks very peaceful and calm in New York today, looking at your
Yeah,
background.
yeah. This is how I want it to be in my mind, this background, because New York's not always doesn't look like cornfields and nice blue sky all the time. But yeah, yeah,
Mm,
thank you.
yeah, it's a bit busier than that, I can imagine.
Yeah,
So, excuse me. So, you're based out in New York. So, what? Just tell us a bit about yourself. What's your background? What's your training? What is it? What work is it that you do?
yeah. I'm an attachment specialist. People who have trouble bonding to other people, relationship issues, they're avoidant attachment, they're anxious attachment, and I do something called Ideal Parent Protocol. It's basically like a guided meditation where you kind of imagine the ideal parents and you kind of build up those developmental bonds that you didn't get in childhood. Very successful. There's some great science behind it. And that's basically what I do, but I'm always on the lookout for other modalities. I'm the guy, I want what works, period,
Hmm.
and I'm very on the ground, you know. So uh that's what I've been doing. But that's kind of how I found IEMT, just obsessively looking for how change happens. That's what I want.
Hmm.
I was in therapy for many years. I didn't change very much, and I know friends too. And I don't even know how you're supposed to change in
Hmm.
therapy. I really don't. You talk, I
Yeah.
guess that's healing. Uh, you know, uh, but I learned how in neuroscience. Basically, you could do just two things. Either you could try new thoughts, new behaviors. That's hard. That takes a lot of years just to try that because your mind already has set down a way you act. And you're
Hmm.
doing a new one to compete. It's called competing mode. Good luck with that. Or you can take the original way, if you can find the original memories and whatnot, overlay it with something new. That's called memory reconsolidation.
Yeah.
And you're only doing two things. You're just kind of letting the brain know whatever happened back here is over. You don't have to keep triggering it, and you can give it a new expectation. Obsessively looked for modalities that might do something like that. I found maybe six. One of them was IEMT. And
Okay.
yeah. And IEMT, for people to know, that's pretty much what it does. You ask people, like, oh, my boss yelled at me. I was upset. And you say, like, oh, okay, that feeling, get into it. When's the first time you felt that? And you go back to that memory, you do some funny eye things, and it goes down. Not only does it go down, but in the future, you're no longer triggered. Obviously, you're not going to like being yelled at by your boss. And instead of a seven, it might be like a three. And we don't know exactly how it happens, as it's REM sleep, whatnot. But you're taking it out of short-term memory, you know, short-term memory saying this still might happen, putting in long-term memory. This is over. You no longer have to have reactions.
Yeah.
Brain's not going to cause emotions because you don't have to actually deal with it. And that was the theory.
Hmm.
And I took your training. From what I know, I figured this might do something. I was very impressed. One of the things in trainings is the person talks forever and you don't get to see them do it, you know? And in your training, you do it. You actually present it, you
Yeah.
know, and you have us do it. And so it's a great training because I'm one of those believers, like you have to experience it.
Yes.
Yeah. The people go to college for 5 years, get their masters, get out. They still don't know how to do anything, you
Hmm.
know? And when I had it done to me, I was very surprised. It really did lower. I was surprised. Everyone was. And everyone said the same thing. Everyone was like, I didn't think it would work that well, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it did, you know.
And
And
that's exactly why we at the beginning of a session, we get straight into doing this example, the opening exercise to show people, because as you said, you went for therapy for many years, not really much change happened. In IMT, change happens in the first session and a lot of it. And by showing people that how this change is experienced right at the beginning, it allows you to control the session. And yeah, so with the training, as you said, a lot of people run a lot of trainings by just talking and doing presentations. I've been on many, many of them. And again, it's like, well, that was interesting. I could have just watched the video, really.
Mhm.
But I haven't learned anything. So I learn by doing. And so the way that I do my training, I do an explanation about what it is. So everything's in different modules, an explanation, a demonstration. And I've barely seen any trainers of anything, not just IMT, do as many demonstrations as I do on things. Then you go do it yourself, and then we come back and talk about it. And you ask any questions and share any feedback.
Yeah, your training was great. It's funny. I'm in a training with this guy, Dr. John Connolly, for rapid resolution therapy, and I'm in training with three other psychologists,
Mm,
and he asked them, how many hours did you see your teachers do therapy? And they
mm,
said, zero. How many hours did your your teachers watch you actually do therapy? And 0 hours. That's insane. If you want to play basketball, someone watches you do it and corrects you while
yeah.
you're doing it. Therapy. And so you're 100% right. I've been to so many workshops where it's just sitting
Mm,
there and it's like I could read a book, you
yeah.
know, like show me how to do it.
Mm,
And that's why experiential. And the other thing about IEMT is you experience something. A
yes.
lot of modalities. It's like we're going to talk, we're going to get some insight about this, and we're going to get some introspection. And it's like, no, you have to have an experience. And even during your workshop, I had experiences,
Mm,
you know, and
yeah.
other people did too. And I saw them have those experiences.
Mm,
So the whole thing was very embodied. And like that is like that's what you don't get in a lot of workshops
mm,
and a lot of schooling in college. And like you said, that's the most important thing, you know. So no, it was
yeah.
a great training.
And thank you. And what I found as well is that sometimes when people do a demonstration, they might do a couple and they want to make it look really impressive.
Uh,
And also the person knows how to play along, you know. So
yeah.
I've been to so many hypnosis demos and so with IMT, it's totally not showy. I'm not trying to get big reactions from people. I'm not trying to get an ab reaction. I'm not trying to get somebody to cry. It's much more subtle than that. And I always say this might go wrong. I don't know. IMT works most of the time and most of the people, right?
Mhm.
Um, Sometimes it doesn't work. If it doesn't work, you do something else. So that's why I do demonstrations on every single piece of the model, and I try to work with pretty much everybody. Although there's like 14 people, so there wasn't enough, I suppose. But I try to work with everybody just to show that people can't play along because they don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Although I know what's going to happen, I have a very good idea what's going to happen. And now you working with clients have a really good idea about the changes they're going to experience. They can't play along because they don't know,
Yeah,
what it's going
that's
to be
actually a
like.
great point because I've been in therapy and I kind of know the script. I know what I'm
Mm,
supposed to say and I just fall into it. Oh, wow, yeah, that thing where you have me meditate. Yeah, that helped my anxiety. And
yeah,
I
yeah.
know the game. And even I've had teachers and I just fall into because I don't want to embarrass them. I don't want to say the
Mm,
wrong thing. Whatever they're trying to do with me, I just go along with it, you know. And you're just playing the game and
mm,
even people, it's performative. I've had clients that cry and this, that, the other. That's great. You cried. Does that change you?
mm,
It's impressive, but that's not what we're looking for. Like you said, it
yeah.
really is just about change. And yeah, you did do that though. And I had no idea what to expect,
Mm,
and also here in America, no one knows about IEMT. No one, you know.
yeah.
I mean, the question is it EMDR? That's all I get.
Yeah.
Um, but by the way, since I do attachment issues, just people actually might be interested. there's a lot of good studies that EMDR is not good for people with attachment issues, especially disorganized, for people with complex trauma. It can make them more disorganized. A lot of EMDR people ignore those studies. It helps a lot of people. That's another reason I went to IEMT. Just like, this is something that's very simple. Like you said, you're not reliving trauma. It's
Yeah.
not brutalizing you. It's very, very simple, very just boop, boop, boop. It seems almost like it's nothing. And I've had clients keep telling me, like, it feels too good to be true. Like they'll experience it even after that. They're
Yeah.
like, it's too simple. It just seems too simple, you know,
Mm.
and it does. It's like, it's gotta be more.
And the important thing is here, people go, how long does it last? And I'm like, well, okay, try and bring it back. Try and bring it back. And this is not like a post-hypnotic thing by any means, because it's all fully conscious. And so I speak with people months and months afterwards. And it's like but I don't know if you found this, but when in the first session, we work on all the big memories and all the big emotions, okay? Then in the second session, it's more identity based, but we always reflect on what's happened last week on the first memories. People say, how long does it last? When they come to the second session, and when we go through the stuff we've worked on, it feels so distant, so far away, like it's just nothing. And that happens with every single person, every single person.
Yeah, yeah. Well, the funny thing is we don't know exactly what's happening in the brain with this stuff. But if it's like I'm saying, memory reconsolidate, if that's what's happening, and it looks like it just looks like exactly, there's no test, so I'm theorizing, but it looks like that's happening. It has to stay that way. Like, this is very hard science with memory reconsolidation. Once that memory is reconsolidating the brain, like when you go to sleep, and REM puts the memory in a different part of the brain, it's impossible for it to happen. So if that's happening, and I do believe it is, it looks like it looks like the effects of it, it is not possible. But you're right, that's the first thing, because a lot of clients, it feels too good to be true. And also, people are always looking for how it's not working, you know?
Yes, exactly.
They're programmed for that. They're
Yeah, of
programmed.
course.
Yeah. So they don't, that's the other thing, they don't want to believe, a lot of people. And I get it. I get it. It's, you know, you don't want to trust it and then be disappointed,
Of
you
course.
know. But you're right, after a week, it's like, go ahead. Like, don't, this isn't theory, you know, this is not theory. You tell me, go back to the memory. And that's another thing about IMT. It's just so, like, I could tell you a million theories, you know, I'm sure we could write big 300-page books on this, but how about this? Let's just do it. And you tell me. That's a
Yeah.
brilliant modality, you know.
Absolutely. I once gave a lecture at a university, excuse me, and there were some very resistant people in there. I didn't like psychology students, but the professors and the much more mature and experienced people who tend to be much more open to things as opposed to psychology students who just like to make a name for themselves and argue and stuff. They loved it, absolutely loved it, did the professors. There's the psychology students who, now they were all, obviously everybody wants empirical data and, you know, double blind tests, and we all do. In fact, have you seen the paper? Well, it's not the paper. An article's just been released about the Maastricht investigation, well, the
Yeah,
studies that they're doing. So we
yeah.
are doing the research. I'm going to be interviewing the lead psychologist on this pretty
Oh,
soon.
you are. That's
Yeah,
gonna be great.
yeah. So they're just showing all the different brain scans, like before and after a session, to show basically the brain activity of kind of what's happening. Again, it's all very sort of like the early stages, but it's like happening at Maastricht University. Excuse me, literally as we speak. It's an ongoing project. So hopefully that will shed more light. But let me ask. So you were investigating memory deconsolidation or reconsolidation, whichever
Yeah.
you want to call it. And you came, and did you know about IEMT before then, or did you find
Oh no,
IEMT on?
no. I obsessively, I never heard of it at all. I just kept
Mm,
obsessively Googling memory reconsolidation, anything with eye movements, because we've had 100 years of a theory that to get well, you have to have a catharsis, you have to feel
mm,
emotions. And then EMDR came along, and it's like, well, maybe not. Some flash techniques, and I've trained in some of them.
Yeah.
And now it seems like we're putting 100 years of psychology. Something's happening. Something's happening. Not just IMT, something's happening all over with neuroscience. We're learning these things, and it's like new. Going the future, to me, therapy is pretty much dead. Going to the future is going to be things like this.
Yeah.
And so I just obsessively looked for anything. And eventually I did come on, his name was Andy Austin. I just like eventually just came on something about him coming up, which I never heard of him at all. And you know, oh, that's right. It was just eye movement. I was just researching any other types of eye movement.
Mm.
And I did find what's his name? The original guy, Stephen Kinderas, something like that, working PSTD. And
Stephen Andreas. Stephen
yeah,
Andreas, yeah.
that's right. Brilliant guy.
Mm.
And I'm one of those guys who sits around reading academic papers all day if I can learn one thing to help a client.
Mm.
And because this is new. And eventually I got to IMT that way. You know, I was like, oh, like any modality that helps people with trauma, any
Mm.
modality, I don't care how obscure, I want to know about it.
Yeah.
And eventually I got to it, and this is very streamlined. But then when I read about it, I was like, this is how it must work. I mean, just to give you like a quick example, I'm trained in something called resource therapy, so ego state therapy by Philippa Thompson. And it's so similar to IEMT. It's something like, someone gets in the argument with their boss, you say, oh, how does that feel? Da, da, da. And then you kind of go back like, oh, when's the first time you felt that way? And then you get the little kid, and it's ego state. So you say, like, oh, you talk
Mm.
to the little kid, hey, little Johnny, how's it feel? Oh,
Mm.
you're feeling anxious. Well, let me give you a new experience. Talk to your
Mm.
father, blah, 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 blah. And then you go back. Now, that's how it works imagely. You're using your
Mm.
imagination and great stuff. But neurologically, what's happening there is exactly what IMT is doing. It's just a different way. But
Mm.
all these things are doing the exact same thing, you know? And so that's why, I just kind of obsessively looked for this stuff. And I saw IMT, I was like, boy, a lot of therapies are doing IFS, controlled family systems. A lot of them are doing them. And a lot of them are doing them, IFS is great, but there's a lot that are doing them in a very convoluted, long way
Mm.
that like they don't even know why they're working. They're just kind of blindly, they know somehow going back and talking to a part somehow is healing, but they're not putting it together, and
Mm.
this IMT just seems to like strip everything off and just go to the core. Not perfect, doesn't work for everyone, not a
No.
miracle. I'm not overselling it, but it's like one of the great tools. Yeah.
Well, exactly. So it doesn't work for everybody. But let's talk about how you've actually used it in the real world, because that's the real test. So to become a practitioner, you go out and do some case studies. And one of the things that obviously we've discussed it quite a lot out is session management,
Yeah,
because people want to talk and talk and talk and talk and talk.
yeah,
And so I know you've really focused on this and really improved your results. And when I say results, I mean how much you can do in an hour or a
yeah.
session. But the real test of any kind of therapy, and I suppose from the training as well, the test of the training is, can you go and do that thing in the real world?
Mhm.
That's the real acid test. Can you, as a somebody who's attended, can you take the skills that this trainer's given you and go and get results in the real world? So what was it like coming from the training to working with people, and what kind of results have you generated?
Well, at first, my results now are pretty damn good. But at first, it was utterly rocky road. I think I heard Andy Austin once say, mental health people, coaches, therapists, they're afraid of their clients. And I heard that, and
Yeah.
I thought, yeah, I am. I'm
Mm.
often am. I don't want to offend. I don't want to say anything wrong. I'm walking on eggshells. And the other thing is, people in therapy, they expect us to talk and talk and talk and talk. They're not
Yeah.
expecting change, and they want to talk, and I don't want to interrupt them. I'm used to dealing with people with some trauma, whatnot. I don't be like, yeah, yeah, stop, yeah, 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 okay, abuse, da, 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 let's go. But no,
Mm.
no, So this is very difficult for me, And, you know, I went in, I told them, this is change work. This isn't care and support. And we're
Mm,
going to get a lot done. But even with that, I'm like, I don't even need to know about the memory. That's what's brilliant about this.
yeah.
And instead, though, they want to talk about the memory. They want to go, not all the time, but they want to explain to me. They want to be known and seen
Yeah.
and heard. And that's fine. But it sounds harsh, but when I kind of just began just jumping in, taking control, they were helped more. And
Yeah.
that's the bottom line.
Yeah.
That was the bottom line. They were healed more when I did that. And, and I would say, like, well, hold on, but let's just go back to this and da da da. And they start talking, hold on, let's just bring it back. You told me about X, Y, and Z. And I just kept doing it, kept doing it. And even though it was a little awkward and it was awkward.
Yeah.
And I felt people were a little like, you don't want to hear
Yeah.
about my trauma? And I was kind of like, I do. No, of course. But this is what I want, your trauma to get better more than I want to hear about it.
Mm,
Okay. And so I really started pushing it, which I am not used to doing. So I had to get used to it. And then I just started going here, the next memory. And boy, you can bang out like 6 serious memories in one. Uh,
mm,
Now, normally that would be 6 or 7 sessions of talk, uh, help or guided meditation or whatever I'm doing,
mm.
but this is very quick, you know, and it's about change and people aren't expecting it. And they fill out the form like, how bad do you want change? And they'll say like, 9 out of 10, and they'll come in and they just don't believe it's possible, you know. And so I had some trouble with that in the beginning, and I really did have to kind of be like, no, 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 this is how it's going to go, and it's for the best. It's for
Yeah.
the client. It really is. Like it's not because I'm a control freak. This will help you.
Yeah. And absolutely. And one thing that's really important, because some people listening to this, especially with your type of background, speaking therapy background, might think, well, you can't do this. People need help. If people need care, like support and care and help, IEMT is not the right thing for them.
Yeah,
Okay. If somebody's learning how to drive, you don't put them in an F1 car, right?
right.
Okay.
Yeah,
So it's a different thing completely.
yeah,
So when people come to me, they've usually tried everything else and nothing else has really worked for them. They may have been in therapy for years and yeah, they feel a bit better, but they still have all these problems. And I'm always thinking, what is it you actually want to go and do in the future? Because
mhm,
people who get obsessed by therapy are obsessed by their past and they have no future plans because they just want to get fixed. And
yeah.
I think you're saying with some of your clients recently, when you check in with them, they are now beginning to think more about the future.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. They're absolutely future oriented because
Mm,
once you experience the IMT and you actually feel some of its healing, you're like, oh, because it happens pretty quickly,
yeah,
So you're like, oh, this can happen. And
yeah,
also IMT is more than just eye movements. There's other things that
yes,
kind of push the way you think towards the future
yeah,
instead of being stuck in the past too. It's not just eye movements. And so no, it's absolutely start thinking like, oh, I can do things like I can do them,
yes,
that's
yeah,
possible. And all of a sudden they're future oriented. And they're not obsessed like this is my job to obsessively think about what's happened to me. I mean, so yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. I did experience that. Yeah.
brilliant. So, how do you see using IEMT in the future with your clients? What's your plan? What's your sort of goal now to moving this forward? How do you see
Yeah.
you integrating it?
Well, so what I do, again, I do some parts work and the ideal parent figure meditation and things like that. So what I do now is the IEMT, I let them know about it, give them the option. And I do that just the first maybe 2, 3 sessions, usually two.
Mm,
In my mind, it's kind of like we're going to get all the gunk out of the way,
yeah,
all the big gunk. That's what we're going to do first before we go in with more subtle things. And it helps because whatever their memories are, I'm telling them like, no, we're gonna get into that.
Mm.
You're gonna tell me. We will speak of that. And as long as they know they're gonna be heard, they're like, okay, I can put that on the shelf and just get this done. And after a week or two, they've experienced change. Big gunk is out, and now
Yeah.
they believe change is possible. That sets them up to think like, okay, change, I get change. Change is
Yeah.
possible. That sets it up brilliantly, much more
Yes.
than let's just talk for a couple sessions and a couple weeks. Hopefully, you'll start noticing some things. No, no, if
Mm.
you do this right off the bat. So IMT, to my mind, is not like a standalone thing. It's like, no, no, if you use this the first 2 times in whatever you're doing,
Yeah.
this will set the stage to make it so much more efficient, and also just breed positivity and optimism because you show them. So this is great for any modality, you
Yeah.
know. Yeah.
And
And
also, if you do IMT for the first few sessions, you've also got all your IMT modules and skills to use should you need them
yeah,
coming up in the future sessions. Because it's like if you do EMDR, to do one memory of EMDR, that's 8 phases,
yeah,
right? It's a long time. With IMT, it's like, oh, hold the memory. Literally,
yeah,
it's that quick. So as this is why I talk with a lot of counselors and support workers and stuff. They will use IEMT for the really heavy stuff, especially at the beginning. But
yeah.
then when something really emotionally painful and something comes up during the sessions, they've got like various amounts of different IEMT tools. So there's like what 8 or 9 tools or something they can use to minimize the resistance whilst they're doing their normal psychotherapy work.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And also the client knows those tools are available
Yeah.
in the future, you know.
Yes.
So yeah, no, no, that's brilliant. And that's what I've
So
experienced. Yeah.
and what we find as well is that when you do IEMT, because it's so different and so new, people like to talk about it to their friends
Oh, yeah.
and family. So have you experienced that already, that people have contacted you because they've been referred because they've heard about this?
Yeah, yeah. I've had a couple of clients say oh, I told my buddy that this would work. And he's like, oh, I've tried everything. Da, 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 da. He's like, oh, so have I. And I have gotten a bunch of referrals. Again, no one's heard of this in America, but people are kind of like, yeah, yeah, I've tried a million things. This actually works, and they're fascinated by it. So far, I mean, I'm just starting out, but yeah, I've
Mm.
gotten a couple word of mouth things. It's so interesting and new.
And because usually when somebody go, I know it's a bit different in America, but in England, especially, if you're going for therapy, you keep that to yourself.
Yeah,
It's quite a shameful thing, and it shouldn't be at all. But it's seen as like you're broken or you're weak or you need help. So you're going for therapy. You keep it to yourself. When people come for IMT, they're generally not in that phase of their recovery anyway from something. They want to change, and because what their experience is so different, and I don't know if you found this, that people look quite a lot different when doing IEMT.
yeah,
Their skin looks different. Their hair can often look different. They just look different.
yeah,
And so, and I think a lot of it's to do when you're working with stress response and turning them off, your body can just be more, well, just function better in many ways. And so, if one of your friends could be in therapy for 6 months and you wouldn't necessarily know.
yeah,
Somebody can go for one session of IEMT and you can see them a week later and you'll be like, what?
yeah,
What's going on here then? Because
yeah, yeah,
and they're not being overly confident and stuff. They can just be, I don't know, best version of themselves. I hate that kind of thing, but they just look a lot healthier and better and just more self-confident. And people, again, I get so much referral work. I don't even have a website or anything, and I don't have anything. Um, I don't want to take on more work. I
mhm,
know I do. My focus is the training, so I can affect many more people.
yeah,
Um, but I get loads of referral work again because people are just so excited to go out and tell people, and not in sort of like in a dogmatic sense or something like that. Because this is not something you've got to believe in for it to work either.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, that's the other thing. People get evangelical about all sorts of
They do,
modalities,
yeah,
and they're talking. You kind of just got to trust them, you know.
yeah,
Like okay, I guess so. But yeah, with IMT, it's like no, no, like either it works or it doesn't, and you'll know.
yeah. And it works with most of the people most of the time. I actually had a client recently that it didn't work for, and I'm actually going to do a training video about this to explain what, and I know why it didn't. And it's not his fault at all. It just didn't work for him, but I have some ideas why. And so yeah, I will be doing that. So just before we go, so in terms of the training, what was your overall view of how the training, the stuff was sent before, what it was like being on it, what the aftercare support has been like, and basically if you recommend it to other therapists?
Oh, yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I put a couple of reviews. Absolutely. I
Yeah,
mean, first of all, you sent out, I don't know if people know, but you get like a whole booklet. You can read all about it, which is helpful. I mean, that alone. And then during the actual training, tons of experience. Then afterwards, I just asked you one or two questions, put it on the website. You put a whole video about one of my things, and you're like, I was like, wow, okay. Like, I was actually thinking and talking about it. I mean, aftercare is superb. You keep checking in on people. I mean, that's like way above and beyond anything you get with any other workshop.
Mm,
And so, oh, I absolutely recommend it.
mm.
I mean, this is something that's simple. It's pretty easy to learn. It's kind of like a fun time, at least with your workshops. And I mean, think about it. You have a modality that can make a big difference. Man, just 2 days. I
Yeah.
mean, why not? Why not? Just take the risk. It's not a fortune, you know?
And this is why I always say it's worth a punt. It's a weekend of your life
Yeah.
that can change not only your life but
Yeah, I know.
thousands of others. And yeah, I do try to make the weekend fun because I've been to so many dry and boring
I know.
seminars, webinars, trainings, and the thing is, you don't take much in because you're just
No.
bored.
Yeah.
So I get people doing this weekend multiple times over. One, because they really enjoy it, and two, because they take in much more every time they do it as well. Because there's a lot to take in for a weekend. So
Yeah, well, you're cracking jokes. If you notice, a lot of the people are laughing. It was just like a very good vibe. Even
yeah,
in the little breakout rooms, people emailed me afterwards. I kept in
yeah,
contact with some people. Like it's just super friendly, which
yeah,
usually it's not. Usually people are often just completely awkward
yeah.
and they're kind of scared. And I don't know, I didn't experience that at all. Like people are really into it, at least with that one. So yeah, no, it's great.
Absolutely. No, we always do get this because I provide, I don't like the term safe space, but I create a little world for 2 days where I will say ridiculous stuff. I will make
Yeah,
you happy. I will make you laugh. And I'm never going to deviate from the material. It's not about me. It's about getting you to be the best people you can be, doing the training the best I can. But we're going to have fun doing it because I want it to be memorable. I
yeah.
want it to be memorable. And you retain more information if you're having fun than if you're not, you see? And then I make it really safe for people to practice because I want people to practice and fail and practice, then succeed, and then go and practice and do in the real world. Because when I first started training, out of 14 people, maybe one person would turn in case studies.
Oh, wow. That's
Yeah.
surprising. Oh,
Well, I used to run a big thing called Interesting Talks, and it was like a psychology event. So most people who came were interested in psychology, but not psychologists or mental health workers. They were just
I see.
everyday, regular job kind of people. Now, I think pretty much everybody on the course that you were on had
Mhm.
some kind of background in therapy and mental health or wanted to get into it. And so pretty much everybody will turn the case studies in. And then, yeah, we have a WhatsApp group for you. I have a broadcast group, then an actual group for all the people that you're with. And then I'm always in those. We have a Facebook group, which I'm in every single day. And then I don't know if you've seen on Thursday. So I'm doing one of the coaching sessions on
Yeah,
Thursday.
yeah, yeah.
And so that's something which I just provide again in the price. There's no continued price or anything like that. You just pay a one-off fee. And then so with that, we get together. I think we've got about 40, 50 people registered for it, more will registered by then. And I'm just going to be talking about how to deal with difficult clients. Plus, if anybody wants any IEMT demos or to do some work, I'm well open for that as well. And we do
Yeah.
that every month.
That's
So
fantastic because now people have experience. They're probably going to actually have real questions.
yes,
So that's great.
absolutely. And you also get to meet more of the community as well. So, in my Facebook group, there is I think about 700, 800 people now. And I've trained hundreds of people now, and I want to train obviously hundreds and hundreds more because there's enough work for everyone,
Mm,
you know. And
yeah.
what I really like about in my group, I've got several other people who are trainers. There's Sonia in there, Mavis is in there.
Yeah.
And when you put a question, you'll get my answer, but you'll get all the other trainers as well, you know. So
I know, it's brilliant. Yeah, Sonia's answer. I'm like, oh, okay, these are like people that are hardcore expert in these things, you know. It's pretty
yeah.
hard. Like if you're, I don't know, if IFS therapist, it's hard to like find a place where you ask a question and have like, yeah, I've been doing this for 10 years professionally, and here's my answer.
Mm,
Very hard to find that, but boom, just go to your Facebook page and it's true. Like you can get some pretty professional advice there, you know.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we have a lot of people in there with a lot of different backgrounds. A lot of psychologists. We've had some psychiatrists, GPs, mental health nurses. You know, so yeah, and a lot, yeah, high level clinical hypnotherapists, loads of people. And this is what's great about IEMT. You don't have to, in fact, you don't have to have any training background because you can come and do the course, and I can train you, and you can actually go out and work with people without having any previous training. I always recommend to do more training, and I see this as the start of your mental health or change work or therapy career. Not just, you don't just want to do a weekend training and then that be it forever with stuff, but it gets you insured so you can work with people, so you can get your public and private public indemnity insurance, so you can work from a premises. But then I recommend combining it with coaching, hypnotherapy, counseling, mental health skills, and actually sort of building out a career from there, but using IEMT as sort of the dominant modality, if you're going to do it that way, rather than having to go to university for years and years and do that, you know. And you know, I think it was Andy or somebody, I can't remember who actually said it. They said, okay, about change work, you take somebody who's done therapy for 10 years, been to study psychology and stuff, and if you could have twins and they've got exactly the same experience, they have 1 hour with that person or 1 hour with me. I guarantee you, I can help that client more within the hour than the other person, the psychiatrist or the psychologist. And it'll be a very big difference as well. It won't just be a bit of a difference, it'll be a large difference. Because with psychologists and psychiatrists and stuff like that, their business model is not based around helping people in the shortest time possible. It just doesn't make financial sense for that to be the case, unfortunately. So that's why, you know, you said you were in therapy for years, and so
Oh
you
yeah.
don't know if you've helped. With IMT, I see people twice. You know,
Yeah.
it's a terrible business model, but when you fuse it with whatever you're doing, you could see somebody for 6 to 10 sessions over a couple of months and radically change their life.
Yeah. There's enough people out there who need it, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, when I see someone in my mind, I'm thinking like, I want to move this guy significantly forward in 6 months. What modalities can I use to do that?
Yes.
You know, and this is one of the
And
best.
do you do sessions in person or online?
I just do everything on Zoom. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I can work that.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for your time. If people want to check you out or look out for you, do you have a website? What's the best way
Yeah,
to?
you can go to attachmenthealinghelp.com, and you can find me. I do attachment work, ideal parent figure meditations, and accept a session with me. So thank you.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much from all the way from New York City. That's how I pronounce it, New York. And thank you very much. And congratulations on becoming a practitioner.
Thank you.
And I hope to see a lot of you in the future.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.